of October 10th through the 18th. There's some big news going on. And so I have Zed Insight, first time streaming with him. Very happy. My normal co host for Inside Zed, MJ Stables, the king of speed, and Zed Insight. I'm going to call you the king of interviews.
Oh, I like that I've got a nickname. Although King of Interviews, it's hardly the flashiest nickname, is it? I'll roll with it though.
We're going to call you Larry King of Zed. Bam.
All right.
All
I
right.
like it. I like it.
And as normal, myself, Golden Globe Master, independent game developer. And so, how do you guys want to start off this week?
So I guess we'll start by popping the screen share up. We'll start talking about some of the super horses of the past few weeks, sorted by ROI. So again, our kind of definition of a super horse is a horse that has 60% ROI with minimum of on $25 races.
Hmm.
Um,
No, no.
or
Average above $8.
average. Yes, thank you. We did adjust that, yeah. So this week, Avison was up and Young Diamond were up, but now we have two kind of new players taking the top spots compared to, I guess, 2 weeks ago. But Fairy Dancer and Wavelength. And Fairy Dancer is a horse that I've been hearing more and more about lately. I don't know about you guys.
That's
Um,
interesting, man. And you're right. It's crazy that popped in because it's got zero point 0.9 ETH profit already, right? So like, how was it not on this list 2 weeks ago? Has it really done? It's broken like more than zero point 0.5 of an ETH in 2 weeks time.
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, that
Look,
is a horse I'm very jealous of.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So the other one was Wavelength, huh? Should we pull these horses up?
sure, yeah.
And this is why I like doing this bi-weekly review because in my ignorance I had not noticed these horses.
All right, so here's Wavelength. And so it's owned by Swift Silks Racing, 180% ROI after 94 races. That is insane.
Yeah,
42% show rate.
that is an absolute beast of a horse. Like, congratulations. That is a complete super freak, right? That's why I love this definition. Like that's the super horse.
Yeah, like look how like it's one thing to be you,
Yeah.
but this is like flat bottom, like bottomed out.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing here. Like 26, 7, 7, 4, 6, 4, 2, 2, 3, 6, 10, 17.
Yeah, that's so nice. I love that it's a Buterin as well. Just anecdotally, like I've found that it's a lot easier to downclass with those higher Z numbers. So if you do end up getting like a super U and a high Z number, I think just because the base ability seems to be so low, that down button is very effective, especially with if you can utilize fatigue at all.
Mm.
Absolutely. Like this, yeah, this horse came out of nowhere for me. And it's not only a Buterin, but it's a legendary as well. And I feel like everyone
Yeah,
hates legendary horses.
I certainly don't.
Oh,
That
and
that
it's
yeah.
two Genesis horses too for parents. It looks like,
Yeah,
and so yeah, they might have found something as well. Later on, if we get in, might want to look into the parents see if they produce any other good foals, because that might be something to watch.
yeah. And here's the other fairy dancer. It's a Z9 Genesis Buterin. So we got all Buterins taking the top spot.
It's funny again, like how was this not on the list last week? Because do you know what I mean? Like it
I think it might have been, but it might have just
ah
been buried in the middle.
oh, I
I'll
see
see
what
if
you
I can
mean.
pull them
Right,
up.
right.
Um, and I think it just kind of like crept up and took the top spot. Let me see if I can pull up the old ones quick. So, wow, yeah, okay, I'm not seeing. Oh, it just crashed on me. But yeah, they weren't in the top 10 even last week. I don't
Wow.
see them at all. Came out of nowhere.
Wow, that's I don't know. How's that possible? It just must just crank through those races, huh? I wonder why what the reason was. It can't have been ROI, so it must have just been that it didn't. Did we say a we did specify a number of races as a minimum cutoff, didn't we?
We did. That could be it. That they finally got through that cutoff.
Yeah, and because of the reduction in fatigue, like maybe they've just been able to absolutely fly through it.
Yeah, yeah, that absolutely could be.
That could
So
Because
do
I
we
mean,
have
look at this,
any?
like
Sorry.
11, 11, like all these races
Yeah,
were today.
I mean, there's beautiful tanking strategy there. Look at that. He's just able to look at that down button getting smashed.
Yeah.
And so, do we have any horses that got relegated from the list? I'm still waiting for my horse, Magic Plank, to drop off because that thing is the most frustrating horse on earth, and I have no idea how he ever made this list in the first place.
There are a few, yeah. Magic Plank sitting right there at the bottom. It's
Somehow
definitely
hanging on.
changed a bit, but I don't have the specifics of who did drop off.
Oh, look, I have a third. Blue Bag is on this list. I have three
Look
horses
at
now.
you, Blue Beggar, Plank, and Trash Donkey.
He's in good form recently.
Love it. I love it.
Good.
I mean, are there any other names? Just kind of looking at the top of the list for both of you. Are there any other names that really stand out?
Miss Universe, but we were talking about her not too long ago. You went down. It's down a little bit. Oh, you said the top of the list. No. Wavelength, Young Diamond, Shadow Power, Gin and Tonic, Moo Moo, Right Girl. No,
I
about
suppose for
oh,
me, the one that does stand out a little bit is Avicen, just because it was a recent sale, right? So I think that horse was available for everyone to pick up for just not that much Ethereum. And so to consider that it's sitting like right at the top of this list, and maybe those numbers wind back a little bit, but yeah, that was available for some time. I think a lot of the big stables maybe slept on it.
I definitely see that. Yeah, because that was another one that I really hadn't heard of until our stream last week or two
And
weeks
then
ago.
the other one that does stand out to me is Ready Set Boom. So
mm,
if you want to bring that horse up, so that
Sure.
is a horse I heard about recently. It's a Z1. I believe it's only started to get raced recently. And to me, this thing might be the best horse in the game. It's to do what it's doing in Class 1 against that level of competition is pretty insane. Because it's not like it's
Wow.
starting in Class 5 and smashing its way up like these other horses. Again, maybe not that many races yet, but yeah, pretty nuts to be doing what
First
it's doing.
started racing September 30th,
Yeah.
and
well,
it's 74 races in. Oh no, sorry, that's not first. That's not first. There's no way it's got 74. I got to hit the drill down. That's why I forgot that gets cut off. Um,
it started racing September 5th.
yeah, wow.
Even then, it's not that long ago, is it? Right?
No,
No, just
I
over a
mean,
month.
I always have so much respect for these guys that are able to have the balls to actually race a Z1, to be honest. And so can you imagine the feeling of sitting on something like this, racing it, and just like, bam, you're blowing Breathless Edge out of the water. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's racing against Breathless Edge, but I mean, yeah, this is the dream. This is the absolute dream.
well,
yeah.
I think how you say, if I had a Z1, I'd race it. I'm like from the goofy school of thought.
Well, there
Like
you go.
Like if you remember, a while ago we interviewed Evergreen, and he didn't know anything about the game. He came in August, I want to say, and he bought a Z2 and raced it, and it turns out it's a flat out stunt. So, you know, you're better off racing it, and then before they change the algorithm, if they change it again to favor breeding a little bit more or whatever, because these Genesis horses, you're never gonna know. You're never gonna know you have like a
I,
great racer if you didn't race
I will live in ignorant bliss.
it.
Like, I just don't want to see that, my net worth drop by a significant amount on that one race where it pulls 40 odds. I know
It
it can't
won't
do that
though.
anymore, but
It won't.
it
What's the
might. It
cheapest?
will with my luck. You don't know my luck, Gordon. Right?
Yeah, but I haven't seen a Z1 Nakamoto go for less than 20 E. So
Hmm.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
yes.
Yeah, we're gonna
Um,
pull that up, right?
but yeah, here we go. Top 10 earners. Um, Looking at that,
Wavelength
Rustin.
again.
Yeah, and Fairy Dancers right there.
Yeah, and no surprise. I mean, so Radar Mondo, the Bexel horse, which I believe CJ is from XYZ, is currently racing. So he's putting in the hard grind legwork. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of Radar Mondo, I think, terrorizing
Nice.
me at least on the track, scaring me off any 1,200-meter races. LBJ Goat's obviously no surprise. I mean, if this, again, we were saying off stream, if the day that LBJ Goat doesn't make this list is when we start drinking champagne on stream.
Yep, I'm in. Done. I'll get a bottle right now.
And
Nothing against
again,
LBJ Goat, but
You know,
yeah, and Avicen at the bottom, right? Like,
yep.
It's just I can't believe this thing was available. How did we miss it? You know, I should have. I bought far worse horses.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and it only went for 2 ETH.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I'm saying only like I got the ETH because I don't, but that's still cheap.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, considering you've got a horse that's a top 10 earner over the last 2 weeks, right? And just anecdotally, things seem to be as competitive as ever. Like we have this slight reduction in the number of people racing, but there's more and more horses, you know? So I think we've got people are just, they're keeping their best races from before. They're all the experienced stables, and we've got all this breeding going on. So without this giant influx of new users, I think if you're making this top 10 list right now, you've got a serious horse and you know what you're doing.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
here's the thing about Avison is it's a Z8 exclusive. It's not a
Wow.
legendary. It's not a or a Genesis Nakamoto. It's an exclusive Z8. So
It's a Zabo, isn't it? I can't remember.
no, it's a if I'm looking at the right one that's owned by Unethical Breeding.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, now I'm looking at it. It's a Z8 exclusive Stronghold Ivory coat.
Wow.
So
Oh,
yes, this is very impressive. This might be the next horse you want to breed with if it jumps in the breed barn with that with your Genesis mare to try to make an elite low number.
Seriously, a real low number.
it would be an exclusive, wouldn't it? Didn't you say it was an
Oh yeah, it would
exclusive
be
horse?
exclusive.
No, it would
Yeah.
be an elite if you bred
No,
your mare with it, a Genesis mare.
I'm skeptical. Have I been misunderstanding Zed this whole time?
Yeah, no, only Genesis colts keep it at exclusive and elite. Mares knock it down one level.
I thought it was the other way around.
MJ, I need a confirmation here.
Yeah, hold on.
I'm getting questioning the breeding guy.
You are the breeding guy. You are the
Yeah.
breeding guy. That is a fact. That is an absolute fact. Hold on. We're doing this right now. We are doing this right now.
I was under the impression that any Genesis that
Only
you bred an exclusive into, it didn't matter
the
which
only
way you
way
did it, it was going to
the
be an
only way
exclusive again.
the only way you can keep it at exclusive,
No, it is one. It's only one.
it's colt.
Oh,
But
really?
when you get down to cross, you can breed a cross with anything except for another cross, and it will stay a cross. If you breed two crosses together, it becomes a pacer.
You know what? I'm never going to have that problem. So it's like, it's nice to know, but I'm never going to try and breed crosses.
So
Until, until you run into one of Stanley Studios or Dr. Ian's crosses and be like,
Yeah, I'm happy for those guys to have their success. It's not a world I'm going to be playing in.
okay.
So a legendary or exclusive female bred with a Genesis male will result in an exclusive female. The other way around, if it's an exclusive male breeding with the Genesis female, it will become an elite.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. We got
Yep.
shut down, MJ. There you go. We should
Yeah,
never
the
question.
Golden Glow's got it.
Yeah.
Well, I focus on breeding. I shouldn't be focusing on racing because I probably would be more profitable. But
um, and then, so do you want to take a minute, pull up the Know Your Horses tweet and talk about just stables themselves?
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, no surprise here. We have arbitrage at the top, right? So, um, but I think the one of the surprises maybe is where's that new horse we were just talking about?
The one that had King Trippy, was it, right? Yeah, Ready, Set,
Yeah,
Boom is King Trippy.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's pretty cool. Super happy for that guy. You know, like knocking it out of the park with one of the best Z1s on the platform, and then I think that horse is probably carrying him into this top 10 list.
Yeah.
Where are you, MJ? Why aren't you on this list?
Oh gosh, no, I'm not racing enough, nearly enough.
I'm just
One
kidding.
day, one day.
Yeah,
I'm
this is the
starting. I'm on
dream.
the positive half of the U for my stable ROI, so I'm climbing. I'm climbing.
here's the thing. LBJ Go only has a 6% win percentage going into for last week. He only had a 6% win percentage, and for him to manage his horse to the high dollar amounts, it speaks for itself. 0.6.
That's wild. I had absolutely
Yeah.
no idea. I suppose he could just be on a giant downclassing bent.
It could be.
But I mean, that's pretty incredible that's still his top horse and having it on this list. Yeah, that's really impressive. Are there
Yes.
any other stables that we're not sort of aware of? I mean, I think Good Boy Racing is pretty much always on top of this list, and maybe we'll get more comfortable with these names as we do it more often. It is a bit of we need to find a way of doing this on the 2 week. So I wish we had both tweets, or we'll have to find a way that we can
To pull it
bring this
back
up
up.
ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Roid Rage Racing, I see all the time around on the track.
Yep.
Um, so, I mean, these are probably frequent names that we see around. I'm actually surprised to not see Unethical on this list, right? It wasn't. Didn't we
Yeah.
say he was the one who bought Avicen? That's
Yeah.
that's a very well known stable. It's been around for a long time. He's added this new super horse to his stable. He must just be slacking off, man. Where's the Unethical top 10 finish?
Really?
Right. And then look at Supreme Display of Talent at 840 races
Yeah, that
through that. Like
is
that's wild.
that's crazy numbers. Like, I yeah, I have absolutely no idea how those guys are getting in that many races. I'd also be pretty interested to see how free races has contributed to this. You know, like if we were able to, in maybe for the next one of these we do, to look at what percentage of free races a lot of these guys are running, because yeah, that's a ton of races. He must be doing either like a lot of free races or a lot of low entry races and just having an absolute ton of horses that he's running.
Yes.
Yeah.
What it is to get into free races too. I used to think people were botting, and now I found out a technique where you just program program your keyboard to hit the buttons for you, and you can real fast get in the free race instead of trying to click it with your mouse. So that
Really?
yeah,
Interesting.
that is the thing. If you have gaming keyboards, you can program the keyboard to get you into the race just by keystrokes instead of trying to hit it with your mouse.
Huh.
Well, that helps. Yeah, I mean, I don't try, to be honest. I don't have the patience for it. Whenever I miss it, it just frustrates me. And I'm like, all right, I'm going back to higher stakes. I can't do this free race thing. But again, to these people who are doing it, I have nothing but respect. I mean, that's a completely different grind. And again, it's pretty cool to see a guy pulling in as the third stable with 800 races, because no matter what, that guy is like out grinding everybody.
Right.
It's
Like
crazy to see
hard.
Good Boy Racing do more Ethereum on 39 races. Right? than a guy who's doing 840 races. That's definitely a stable I'm checking out after stream.
If you
Yeah.
look, if you look at Rendezvous Peak, I think Rendezvous Peak was in two $500 races last week. So you
Wow.
remember Rendezvous Peak got stuck in a 2400 with Mula Mula for like 2.5, 3 weeks. Nobody wanted to fill a race. And I think Rendezvous Peak got third in that race, and obviously she jumped in another $500 race to set that ROI up really high.
So it looks like we have supreme display of talent in chat, and he's confirming that a lot of them are class one free races. So that's
Nice.
that's pretty impressive. Props to you, man.
Welcome. Welcome
That's a
to welcome to the show.
mean grind. Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
I believe it's Alex RUINYC. Thank you.
Nice.
Showing up.
I know. One sec. I gotta switch off my screen. I'll come
Cool.
bring it right back.
Right. And so just
So I guess we're going to be pulling up
There
the
you
market
go.
next, right?
Yep. 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 And I've got that right there. And I'll go ahead and zoom that in. So, I mean, I think 2 weeks ago we were around here. Like it wasn't
Um,
bottom of the
we're,
barrel yet, but now
yeah. No, we're getting
we've
there.
we're back to like April. This is
We're
before
finding
I
that
even
bottom.
started playing. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I do think that it's going to start turning around now, because we've got all this good news coming. The comms have noticeably improved. All of these other things that maybe we'll touch on in the news section. So I mean, for me, it's potentially a good time to buy, because I would be very shocked if things don't start to turn around. However, like again, just most stables have 3 horses, and if you stop people, and maybe they've got one actual really good racer, and if you can only race 3 times a day, it turns out people aren't going to want to race, and it's going to kill the market. So
Yeah.
um, there's a continued decline, at least in volume here. I do think though that turnaround that I'm talking about, once we get into the individual horses and looking at the specific flaws, I do think you see signs of that that coming in. So maybe once we get to that, we can I'll show you what
We
I'm
can
talking about.
go right there right now. Um,
Yeah.
you can go ahead and
Oh, I
zoom
love
this
this
in.
chart you've done.
Nice job.
Thank you, thank you. Um, so yeah, we've updated the dates and just kind of looking, just eyeballing the comparison. The red is today versus when we last streamed, and there's a big jump up for Nakamoto unraced females. And I don't know if that's just a big solo sale or what, but like that is huge.
Yes.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because if you look at it, like all of the floors have continued to fall once again, like pretty significantly from what
Hmm.
we had last week. So, but well, all the floors is incorrect. Like right up until like Sabo hasn't fallen that much, and then Nakamoto has actually increased,
Hmm.
Yeah,
at least in the Z1 level. So again, like I'm kind of hoping that so we're sort of seeing big money move in or sort of more investment stables, people with maybe like a longer time horizon. However, in my mind, like one of the reasons for this could be just a reduction in new players or that sort of like entrance level getting in at the Genesis Buterin level that seems to have fallen off significantly. But if we
yeah.
see it come back at the top end of the market, like I think the the low end of the market will follow. So hopefully, again, in the following streams from this, we will start to see that.
Another thing that I find kind of interesting is like looking at like here's your Z. You can very clearly see here's your Z1, here are your Z2s. Then you have what we're getting into Zabos here again. Like it just keeps like halving almost all the way
Yeah,
down.
yeah,
And
yeah. That's right.
the Finney market did go up a little bit as well. We were noticing that a couple of days ago. If you look into the Finney unraised females and males, it kind of the females just went up slightly. We were noticing sales on Saturday, not for as much money as the Nakamoto's, because what happens is you tend to notice when there's Nakamoto sales because the amount of money you start talking about is gets exponential. But we did see a high volume on Saturday for unraised finnies, as well as like you can't really see it on the graph. Unraised buterins were selling, or not unraised, excuse me, buterins were selling, but not for a higher profit per se.
Right. It does seem maybe there's volume there, but again, that floor's just continued to fall. Really, I mean, one of the reasons for this, I think, is potentially the class system. Like, it's hard to breed, at least in my opinion. We can talk about this when we get to breeding, but I think it's hard to find combinations of Buddha and breeding that you're going to have the consistent level of success with, at least. I mean, personally, also, like I've been trying to buy up Finnies. I've been selling off some Buterin and buying Finnies as well. I think that is the sort of the opportunity, at least in my mind. Z5s is kind of what I'm trying to chase.
See, I was
Interesting.
the interesting thing about it though is I did that. I made that, and I made that same move, and I'm starting to almost feel like I should have stuck with buterins because it seems like there's just better buterin racers than Finney racers at the
Hit,
moment.
hit, hit me up, Golden. Let's do some trades, man. I'm loaded with Buterin. You wanna swap me some of those Finnies? Let's do it.
They're donkeys. You don't want
Hey, I might do. It's just breeding stock I'm after. But
them. Yeah, but yeah, I made that move, and no, it's like buterin genesis females. I think they're good value. Are exclusive Nakamotos or exclusive what's it exclusive Zabos or males are good value or
yeah,
even maybe even females because you could breed them into your Genesis buterins or
I mean,
whatever for a
we
cheaper.
can't really see it here because this is only Genesis, right? But I mean, one thing that I have seen that just seems crazy to me, although I guess it depends how things turn out, but sort of the low Z number legendary market and exclusive market. I mean, you can get some deals right now, and that's another
Yeah.
thing. I mean, I'm already pretty much all in Zed, so I'm trying to stop myself from spending money on this damn game. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to resist, man. There's some. If you're talking legendary market, I mean, the floor we see here in Genesis, at least there's something holding that up. And in the legendary market, it really doesn't seem to be much at all. So
Yeah, the
yeah,
legendary.
there's definitely good opportunity for sure.
It just seems like you said the bred horse market is pretty much went down and everything except for the um, Nakamoto market is went down.
Mm-mm.
I don't see why the Zabo market went down. Actually, there's actually less Zabos on the platform than Nakamoto, so I don't get it. Just because they release more Nakamotos, Genesis ones at least. So
Yeah. It's funny because so maybe as we transition MJ into the larger sales for each of these things, I think that it's kind of the reverse when you look at who's buying the paid races.
mm,
So I was looking at this in prep for this stream and sort of like, yeah, here as we see it here, we're seeing this sort of this nice turnaround of within the last couple of weeks of quite a number of Buterin races selling for a good amount, right?
yes,
Yeah.
It's just, do we have on this filter, MJ? Do we have Genesis? Oh no, there's legendaries in this. No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you look at this, that's pretty good. Like that's really good volume. Do you remember 2 weeks ago when we were doing this? There were sort of like one or two really big sales. Like we were talking Poodle to the Moon and stuff like that. But we weren't getting just the number of sales. Where I mean, here it looks like there's 10 or so sales above one Ethereum, which you're only going to be paying for a Buterin, especially a legendary Buterin, if it's a serious racer on the track. So, again, I think that this is that turnaround of fatigue, finally being able to get some volume out of a horse, finally being able to get some ROI. It's
Yeah.
giving the confidence to people to go out there and buy these horses. So, again, it's funny from that unraced perspective. It looks like the floor on Buterin is dropping off, but again, some signs maybe of the market turning around that the more clued up racers are willing to put themselves out there right now.
yeah, it seems the part.
Absolutely.
It's
And a
also,
handful
I
of
mean,
these going for like an ETH or higher. The lowest we've got half an ETH,
yeah,
0.55.
that's really good, right? I mean, it's some of these horses have been terrorizing me on the track for some time.
Mm.
I mean, and there's some great deals. Who comes to mind? Yeah, Open Darkness for a long time was like Real Crystal. I think that's bounced around for like 5 stables, but again,
Yeah.
it's good to see it changing hands.
Here's the now the
So
Finnies.
Finny, maybe less so, right? I mean,
This
less so in
f-
terms of the paid races.
this feels like the Buterin chart almost, or like
Well,
price wise.
Mm.
price-wise, it's high, but the surprising thing to me, I suppose, is that if you look at the number of races here, only the top sale seems to be a sale of what I would consider a racer. Do you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
second sale there, Pixel Youth, that only has 3 races. So someone's buying that for, they like it from a breeding perspective or something like that. So whilst the market is maybe turning around at the Finny level again in terms of the volume of sales, because we certainly didn't see this 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
No.
um, there, there's not that many. Maybe do we have the has this got legendary selected by any chance? Like, why aren't we seeing? No, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
It's everything.
Yeah, so it's kind of it is sort of odd that there are just no legendary Finnies changing hands. Maybe you're right, Gordon. Maybe they are ship breeders.
Eh, I'm not gonna call them shit breeders because there are some pretty good legendary finnies on the market, but not on the market on the platform. It's just they're not performing as well as Buterins as far as breeding goes in comparison to their numbers, I guess. And
Hmm.
numbers, well, it might be around. It might be you might do better. Let me see really
So
fast.
all Genesis and then an Elite right here at the bottom for point
Right,
eight.
right. Yeah, just kind of wild. And again, I mean, it could just be because I mean, in my opinion, Finnies have more combinations that you can sort of get a good percentage of runners out there. But I think it's just the sheer number of Buterin that get bred every month, right? Means that on just like a raw numbers basis, there's going to be more Buterin that are runners out there.
Yeah.
So it could be that, but yeah, it is funny to see no massive sales here from a racer perspective.
Yeah.
The kind of switching over to Zabo.
And so I think what Zabo, when we looked at the chart before, Zabo and Nakamoto were the two that seemed to be like holding their floors.
Yeah. And yeah, 5, 4. But this is a Z3 Zabo for 5.7. We were seeing Finnies and Buterids for like 3.375. Here's a Z3 Zabo Genesis, 18% winner, 11 races, not a lot,
Yeah.
but 3.75, which is the same as some of the Buterins and Finnies were going for.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that's wild to
wild.
me.
Yeah, that's true. Although I guess it's a stallion, but I mean, what's the mare for in this? It's true. Like, I think right now is a great time to buy Zabo. I don't have any Zabo. I mean, I still don't think I can afford one, but
Yeah, this
I've been
is
saying I've been saying that for
Zabo
I've
Genesis.
been
Yeah.
saying that for like 3 or 4 weeks on Inside Zed, and for people who have the money, um,
Hmm.
buy the Davos. And the only reason is if you're looking at this, and I hate to say this because it sounds like business advice, but the only reason I am actually saying this is because there are 2,000 total Nakamotos and 2,000 total Zabos. And so just from a pure, if you believe in Zed and you think 2 or 3 years down the line that it's going to be, everything's going to 10x, then getting a Genesis Zabo is going to be not that much different than owning a Genesis Nakamoto because of rarity. And so I look at these prices and I'm like, why? Why? I can't afford it either way, but I'm like, why are these prices so low? Like
Yeah,
it's completely unreal to me.
I can't floor your logic. It's tempting me.
in LJ's in chat and says only 1,000 of each, same as Naka.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild, actually. Okay, you guys are talking me into it. I'm gonna have to
I guess you
evaluate
get the
the
Zabo,
MetaMask account and see what I can move around.
and so then finally going at Naka like 39. These are the numbers I'm kind of expecting to see. 20s, right below, right around 20.
And this ties in with the chart, with the table we were just looking at, right? Like NAC
Yeah,
is the only thing that's just continuing to go up. It just doesn't care about everything else sagging. It doesn't care about the lack of volume, and NACs just fly.
Yes.
And 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 the other thing is, I think we should add for the only thing to our table, we should add the unraised, unbred floor, right? Because
hmm
our table doesn't include breeding, but you do see it when we look at the Nakamoto chart. I don't really think you see it too much, or that there's a big market for it in the other breeds. I could be wrong, but if you go to the top of this list, like that horse that sold for, what is it, 30 something Ethereum, right at the very top. I
yeah,
mean,
39.
39. I mean, that's insane money. And you're
Yeah,
basically paying double just for the fact that it's a filly and not a mare, you
yeah.
know? So, I mean, that's an awful lot of a premium to pay for something just because you want that unopened packet, man.
That's insane. That is absolutely insane. And one thing too that I'm seeing just scrolling through is that there are a lot more bred horses in this list compared to the other ones. So a lot of
Mm.
legendaries, um, like
Yeah, that is interesting as well. Like, so when I,
exclusive.
I interviewed Sintra Boss again recently, or had a chat with him on my podcast, and same thing. He was sort of saying that he was seeing the bread legendary market come back a little bit.
Yes.
It's good
That's
to
for
know.
Nakamoto's though. Just Nakamoto's.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's because I like to think a lot of things that us content creators do influence the market.
I wish.
And this goes back to the thing with Evergreen when he had the when he became a content creator, he bought Diamonds, which was a Z2 legendary, and the horse turned out to be a flat out cannon. And it's to Lucky Jack. We were talking a little bit earlier. He's in the strap in the chat. Shout out to Lucky Jack when he was saying, well, for like the Maiden Cup coming up, he's in a conundrum. Does he put a Z2 in the Maiden Cup, or does he breed like a Z6 or a Z7? Because you start off in a hot, you don't start off so hot with 37 class points and start off like class 3 to class 2 or whatever. But you have a hot, it's almost like with Z2s, you have a higher opportunity or a higher chance of scratching like that high lottery ticket where you're going to hit almost.
You know, my problem with, I think you're right that they're clearly going to be the best legendary breeding stock that you can have. But the issue is if you look at the percentage of good runners that come out of Z2s, it's a horrible number. Like, it's worse than almost every combination.
Are you talking?
And
Are you talking Z2 to Z2 Genesis or Z2?
no, no, I'm talking Z1 to Z1, right? So getting a legendary, like on a pure percentage basis, it's horrid. And I think the reason is that your base class is so high already, your base ability, that you're pretty much in class one, and class one is just filled with murderers, right?
Yeah.
So unless you just absolutely smash it out of the out of the ballpark, right, it's going to be tough. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think, again, it's probably the best like legendary to have because of its breeding ability. like following that. But I think if you're looking to get lucky on a breed and get something that is a good paid racer, I really don't think that Z2s are a good way to go. I think the XYZ guys have a really good chart in their Discord channel. If you want to look at this, they have like every breeding combination, Genesis to Genesis. You can
Mhm.
see the percentage of breeds that turn out to be profitable. I think it is after 10% win rate or something like that. And yeah, Z2 have some of the lowest that have, if you consider every breed so far.
But here's the kicker. Um, the numbers for Z2 legendaries are way lower than every other horse on the market, just because there's what five or 750, or excuse me, 950 Z1 Nakamotos total that are on the market right now.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're breeding, what's there, 8,000 Buterins or something like that already on the market, or and so forth and so on. So they have a higher number just breeding, and they
Yeah,
get
but
the
I'm talking about percentage. I'm talking about percentage, so they wouldn't be affected.
oh
But
yeah,
you're right. So like in raw numbers, like obviously Buterin are going to have the highest, right? But even if you look at percentage, like Z2s, and again, I just think it's because class one is
but
a field of murderers.
But you could also argue that if I have everything that a Buterin breeds with, a Buterin. So if I
Hmm.
breed a Z10 Buterin with a Z1 Nakamoto, it's still a Buterin.
Yep.
A Z1 Nakamoto or a Z2 Legendary can only breed with another Z1 to have that low number. So, like, just Z10s in particular, you can go Z10 all the way down to Z1 Genesis to Genesis, and you have a better opportunity for more different combinations as well.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it that way as well. That's another. I don't know if XYZ has that combination. Z.
They have every combination. You can pull
Okay.
up the chart. So, but I would love to see. I would love to have a Z2 mare personally.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right. Just because of the number of combinations you can create.
Yes.
It's yeah. I would love to have that in my stable, and I just don't.
Yeah,
Not
but we
many
all.
Can't
The
people
do
only
it.
person I know is probably Lucky Jack and Bob Deneller and like zombies and the Poseidons and the Doofies
Yeah,
probably sit
super
down.
stables. Yeah,
No, they were just here when they were just here at a time when you could do that. You
yeah.
know.
I mean, there's no way. I mean, again going back to the like having balls discussion.
Yeah.
It's there's 0% chance, even if I was here that long ago, that I would have held through it. So like those guys deserve every bit of success they've had. I would have doubled up once or twice and been like, I am out. I'm rich. I'm done.
Call it quits.
See,
Yeah,
I
call it
think
quits. Exactly.
I listen to Doofy too much. I'd have had to race everything. Like I've sold horses. I can't sell an unraced horse. I don't see how people do it. 'Cause I'd be looking back like shit. I gave up Princess of Power. God, whoever sold that horse is probably kicking himself once a day.
Yeah.
Should we
Should we
switch
move on to the
gears?
tournaments?
Yeah, let's
Yes.
talk tournaments. That sounds good. Um, so yeah, we've got NFT Red Zone, which is finished.
Yep. We've got to start at the bottom, MJ. That's the one I won. Come on.
Oh, all right,
I
all
get
right,
to
all
I get
right.
to flex a little bit.
The
Okay.
the DGen.
No, the
The
Don.
no, the Dons, the Dons.
He won the Don's half.
I mean, and so yeah, I've got a YouTube video out on this, but I mean, the truth is, I got incredibly lucky. Deer Creek forgot to do his last race. That guy like had it in the bag. All he needed was a ninth place. Um, but it was a really fun day. It gave me a lot of experience, and this is my first tournament that I actually took seriously. And again, I think that it is a whole nother world. It's the opportunity cost is crazy, as in you really got to think about, are you actually going to make money even if you win the tournament, because you have to pretty much sideline your horse the entire time. Um, so yeah, it's going to be interesting with this Z tournament coming out, because the qualifying period alone is just so long. Again, that opportunity cost is going to be really real. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was good to win, but again, got very very lucky. You need a lot of luck in order to win these things.
Congratulations on that. Like that's a big accomplishment. There's some big names in here. Frostine, Urban Cadet, Deer
Yeah,
Creek is
Urban
my least
Cadet.
favorite horse in the whole game.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, Deer Creek again. I mean, he completely had this thing in the bag. Definitely should have won. Urban Cadet, I kind of cheated. I sniped him with one of my other horses on one of his last races to push him off first. That was my thrown in strategy.
No, nothing wrong with that. They never said you can't do it.
Yeah. But
Um,
anyway, yes, that was
yeah,
a lot of fun. We move on to another tournament.
sure. Donkeys.
Yes.
I didn't enter this one. Did anyone throw in a donkey?
I did, but I didn't race it all the way through. Unfortunately, was not able to. So
So
cause for alarm.
what was your strategy, MJ? Because wasn't this the one where you had to come sixth and seventh? How were you trying to ensure that that was the case?
Just looking at like distance of where the horse most likely finished there. So
Mm-hmm.
I do like on my chart, it's the 4 through 8. So I
Yeah.
kind of use that as my starting point, and then I would dig in a little deeper into like the actual finish placements and go from there.
Did
Um,
you did you put in was price a consideration at all? Like my gut feeling there would be bumping up in the dollar fee might help you get that sixth and seventh due to a higher level of competition.
it
But
crossed my
then obviously
mind.
it's an expensive way to try and win.
Right. So there's that price, and then like all of my data is based off of that existing price point, that low price point
Right.
to begin with.
Yeah.
So I didn't. I think I only had like 5 or 6 races in here. But I like that the winner won with only 14 races.
Yeah, that's impressive, huh? I wonder. I mean, I suppose in this tournament as well, you could you could get negative points, couldn't you? Because you could finish
Yeah.
last. So that's a really good strategy, actually. The fact that he was that far ahead, he must have just waited Balancer out, and just he had that one in the bag if he needed to gamble on it. I imagine. Although, again, if he had lost for whatever reason, he could have. It's a big gamble, right? Because you can go from first to fourth or fifth or whatever.
Yeah. Huge gamble, but very smart strategy from the stable for sure.
I
Good
mean,
time on
again,
racing.
one bad race can really throw you off. So in the Dons tournament, I had Trash Donkey and Blue Bagger up the top there, and I was doing quite well. They were both in the top five for most of the tournament. And then I had one race that just flipped. It's one of those short distance races where all of the long distance race horses win.
Yeah.
And Trash Donkey came last, and just tournament over. Bam, 11 negative points, and you're done, man. One race in
Oh.
15, so it's rough.
So that happened to me too. I misread my distance I was going for. I was like 1600. I went in 1400, and my horse won its first ever race. Like period.
It's
I was
so
like, all right,
Yeah,
bad.
I'm done.
I
yeah.
remember.
Um, so
It's
yeah,
crazy
that
because
that was
somebody for the next donkey tournament, I'll sell somebody a donkey. It won't win.
oh no. Server error on that one. We'll see if we can go up to the chateau, which was a lot of
These
fun.
are still in progress, aren't they?
These are done. No, chateaus
Oh,
is
okay.
done.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. I was fortunate enough to be asked to be a captain in that. Fortunately, we finished last, but I had a blast doing it, and it was really cool. I thought it
So
was
who
going very
won?
very well. It was wasn't zombie, yeah, zombie, yeah,
Joe
Oh
won.
wow.
Joe, Zed Guru, Arbitrage,
Wow.
Sean, Eric, and myself. So it was good. It was a lot of fun. Chateau set it up really nicely on Discord with like we each had our own private Discord channels. We could talk strategy and getting ready for it. How we wanted to approach, stamina and classing and down classing and what distances. Like it was really really nice. Um, a lot of fun to be a part of. Really cool experience.
Yes.
It's a lot of work these tournaments though, right? Like I found the time cutoffs and things, found that all quite stressful, especially with the existing fatigue, because the fatigue management was such a big part. I do think that going forwards tournaments will be a lot easier, and I'm really
For
looking
sure.
forward to having them on the Zed website itself.
And Blazer
Right.
said he had a good time. He came in last in that tournament with you there, MJ, but he still had a good time. Loved the tourney.
Yeah. We yeah, big shout out to Blazer. Nice to see you in chat. I guess I saw the ponies earlier, but yeah, that was a blast.
Yes.
All right, I'm getting some more errors, so we will just go back.
While
That was
this
the
while this
glitch tournament page glitched.
while this
So,
is loading, I will say two fools and their moolah, Souls Vanish, also in Discord. They're winning the stable duels. They're 3 weeks straight. now.
Oh.
They're going against Lucky Jack tomorrow on Pony Plug show. So, you know, he said he's going to take him. He's going to take him to a different game and make him run Griffey. So,
Uh-oh.
should enjoy that.
All right, so if you guys don't mind, I'm still having some trouble with this site. We'll switch over to news.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess the first thing that I had pulled up was just talking about some of the um, updates around comms and around tournaments, and just kind of like site issues and communication relating to that. So they have the Zed.Run status Twitter account now. What do you guys think about that?
I'm.
That
Let's. There you go. Sorry.
okay, that's like they finally listened to the community. When we just want you to say, "Oh, we're working on it. This bug's here." You know, because little small little things, communications go a long way to alleviating everybody's fears. And you know, from what I understand, Zed General is toxic, and so you know, most AAA companies and Zed's a double A company that will soon be a triple A company in terms of internal revenue. And so they don't speak to the community like that. They'll this is what just happened. They normally have forums and they don't mess with Discord like that. And like I said it a couple of weeks ago, they probably should shut down the Discord because Discord's not for a game. It's not a good thing. They should probably go toward forums and stuff, and that way they could just communicate on their forums and on Twitter. Because a lot of people don't even use Discord. That like there's a lot of boomers that didn't even know anything about Discord, and so them being that Zed.Run stats thing is huge. Hope they do one on Facebook too for the boomers.
Status. Yeah. Look, I couldn't agree more. I think that a lot of the a lot of the frustration people have with Zed is just the fact that it's not necessarily the screw ups themselves. It's just the fact that there's no postmortem, there's no communication, right? And I will say, to Zed's credit, with these two new communication hires recently, and with stuff like this new Twitter account, it seems small, but quality of life is just so nice. It's nice to know, hey, we're having issues. Literally just that one sentence. And I think that's why it was so frustrating for so long, because it just seemed so obvious and so easy. That all being said, now that we actually have it, like kudos to them, they finally solved it. I believe, to me at least, communications have been, markedly better in the last few weeks. And yeah, look, that was my biggest problem with the platform, I think. So if this keeps getting better, keeps improving from here, which I imagine it will do, then yeah, awesome stuff, right?
Yes,
Super,
and to
super cool.
further my point real fast about getting away from the Discord for Zed is because if I'm a community manager, I don't want to go in there and deal with all of the minutia. Boom.
I,
See
I
that
don't think you
October,
can now, though, right? There's no, you can't wind
you
back
can't
Discord
win,
at this point.
and you can't win. You can't win because there's always a Debbie Downer for there's 50 Debbie Downers and 25 people that are like, well, what about this? And then 25 people are like, great. So you can't win. So they're better off with this Zed.Run status. This is what happened. This is what we're gonna do, and then boom, fixed.
Well, I mean, to your point, I do agree. I don't think that they should be out there, like in general, duking it out with with most people. But again, it's nice to have a Discord channel that comes up with these same announcements. Not everyone's on Twitter as well, and I do think that
Yeah, that's
in today's day and age, gaming sort of revolves around Discord. So it makes sense to me. But again, yeah, I'm with you. They shouldn't be sort of like, you don't want to see them in there like getting into a fight with Dan Chan or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not only NFT games revolve around Discord. Believe it or not, like Fallout 76, Cyberpunk, any big game you want to think of, they don't have a developer Discord where they're talking to the fans. Like you're not going to see Hideo Kojima, who made the Metal Gear Solid and all those things. He's not engaging with people on Discord at all. End of discussion. Sony's not like if something goes wrong with Horizon Zero, so there's not a Sony rep in Discord saying, "Hey, such and such, such and such." I know that's a lot more that like higher end on a AAA perspective, but Zed is getting to that. They're at the
I
double A
mean,
part.
I don't think we should aspire to that. Like, that's kind of, it's sort of like, look, if your fans are hanging out somewhere,
Mhm.
you should be there communicating with them on their platform. Like, just because these giant studios yeah, they're probably too busy to get in there and and again, yeah, duke it out with the fans. But look, to Zed's credit, they are trying. They do have those communications people. And yeah, I do think it's gotten better. I don't think getting rid of Discord is the answer, and I don't think it would be possible at
I'm
this
not
point.
saying it's the answer. I'm just saying there's too much. They're never going to be able to satisfy everybody.
Yeah,
You know what I
there will
mean?
always be frustration, and I never read general. I have to admit.
They're never going to be able to satisfy everybody, and like what's it? There's too much criticism. Like people, they are people. The developers and stuff like that, they are people. And somebody who has self confidence issues or things of that nature. Like I'm a video game developer. I have confidence issues all the time and things like that. And you got people like some of the toxic things that are spewed to people. It's bad. I couldn't deal. I know I personally couldn't deal with it on a daily basis. 8,000 people talking about you. You're stupid. You're fucking up. You don't know what you're doing. That's. I know that's getting sidetracked, but that's they are people. And they're on the cutting edge, and I'd rather have them focusing on making their vision and bringing it to life than me,
I
because I
mean,
believe in the vision.
I guess one more time. I don't know. I want to drag this out too much, but
Yeah,
I mean, to General's point, or like I can see why there was that frustration and why there was that level of toxicity to some extent, because literally there was no comms, man. Like game would be down for 2 hours. All you're after is one tweet to say that, right? And so, like, yeah, I can see why things were getting a little toxic. And so, just by having this extra level of communication, and I think also, didn't we see like Rob put like a pretty detailed post into General? I don't think people are asking for too much, but just that level of communication coming at a higher frequency should reduce the level of frustration in general.
I don't know. Rod's the person who banned me from Discord, so I can't tell you what he wrote.
So I mean, kind of the other part of this equation is that they're
Yes.
going to be doing weekly AMAs. So 15-minute AMAs, they'll answer the biggest questions. They'll create a new Discord channel where you can ask your questions. Like I think that's cool because it creates a channel and a specific outlet for this, so General just doesn't get spammed
Yeah.
24/7 through 65. At least that's the hope.
Yes.
And then
I mean, my
again, more
only
direct feedback.
yeah, I love this, but like 15 minutes is kind of like, well, is that one question? How are we going to do that?
We
Yeah.
said earlier that 15 minutes is like when you ask a politician a question and he takes forever to answer and you don't actually get an answer. So,
Yeah.
and
You're right. It'll be interesting to see how they do the format. I think like half an hour or something, or just like a number of questions. Maybe I understand these guys are busy, but yeah, 15 minutes seems weak. But again, it's in the right direction for sure, right?
yes,
Absolutely.
I agree. It is in the right direction. I'm glad to see that they are taking the steps to at least communicate with us.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to bring up is the tournaments and kind of get your guys' thoughts on that. The first one that's coming out. How do you guys feel about it?
Okay, so you got to get down to the grand finale.
Okay.
Go right after the qualifier, then the quarterfinals and the semifinals. They're dates, and it's all one day, and so it's all on October 30th, and the time like the qualifiers end on October 30th, and then the entire tournament runs the rest of that day. It's going to be shortened from I think 592 horses down to one horse in like a matter of like 12 hours, and it's going to begin 12 a.m. British time. So I have no clue how this tournament's going to run when it actually starts because it's condensed into a
Wait.
lot of races in a short period of time.
What do you mean 592 down to 1?
It might be 576.
Oh,
Go
from
up.
like the very start?
Qualifying period. Oh, you got a different page than I had earlier.
So
Oh, it's 192. Excuse me.
at the end of the qualifying period, there'll be 192.
Yeah, so it's 192 down to 1, and it's in the course of one day.
I don't think that's right.
Yeah, this could be the second time that Gold is going to school us both, MJ. But I'm with you. I don't think that's correct. I think that because you have qualifying, then you've got the semis, and then you have the finals. I think there's a good amount of time between all of them, right?
It said what we were looking at earlier. Let me see if I can find this. Sorry, chat. I gotta go in and.
Well, whilst you do that, I have a couple of thoughts on this tournament.
Sure.
It's again after having like put in the legwork to actually try and win one of these tournaments for once. I was surprised at a few things. I was surprised at the real level of opportunity cost, and given the length of this qualifying period, I think they said 30 races, right? And it's
Yeah.
all of your races. So one that almost removes any chance of tanking. You know, I mean, you might have to start in class 5 if you really want to and go through if you want to give yourself the best shot at it. But I don't think most people are going to do that. And that's just a huge amount of time. So if you really want to like race outside of your standard entrance fees, the opportunity cost there is going to be real, real, real. So yeah, I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing, or whether we're just flipping coins now. Um, but that qualifying period seems incredibly tough to me. And then the other thought that I had with the finals being across all three distances
Yeah.
is I think that it's going to be almost impossible for anything other than a mid-distance specialist to win this. Because if you look at, like, I'm lucky enough to have a very good sprinter and a very good distance runner, and Saga Bolton's a decent mid-distance, right? But the chances of Trash Donkey, my best sprinter, 1,000 meter specialist, ever winning, you know, in anything, even the 1,600 meter, is probably zero. And I guarantee you he's going to come last in the 2,600 meter, right? So,
Sure. Right.
and the inverse is true for long distance preference horses, because they just have their distance preference is so strong that that's what they rely on. Whereas the mid distance runners, they're usually reliant on their variance. So, what I think is going to happen here in the finals is that, you know, a really, really good mid distance. I think Rendezvous Peak is a mid distance, right? And a tremendous horse. Something like that could get lucky in either the short distance race or the long distance race with its variance, but is very likely to dominate the mid distance distances. Something like that, I think, has the best chance of actually taking home the finals. I don't see how a distance specialist horse can win this.
Well,
And
they said what we were saying earlier is you do have horses that are like I was favoring Breathless Edge earlier because
Oh,
I'm just looking at the speed data on Breathless Edge, and he's top 5% in all but 1,000 meters, and as far as the speed goes. And
but
his,
look, what are his placements like? I haven't looked it up, but I'd be interested to bring up his horseshoe, right? Because I do believe that that Breathless Edge has some level of distance preference. I'm not
yeah,
entirely sure.
20.
I could pull it up.
He
Yeah, pull it
says
up.
2,200. Timmy said 2,200, but the speed shows 2,400. Just in terms of how he finishes in speed. So I don't completely know, but his win distribution is high as well.
Oh man, that's true. He does seem to just win at every distance. Well, no, not look. Well, he's only had one race at
At
1,000
1,000
meters.
meters. That's why I
Hmm.
said it. But it
Yeah, you're right. Something like this that just has a there's just like a pure ramp racer also has like a tremendous shot, obviously, right?
yes. But to your point, we are saying something like maybe Big and Tall or Ducky Malin as far as like big name racers. I don't know
Hmm.
if a big name racer is going to take it. To be honest, I'm hoping it's like somebody like average horse that like to your point runs at 14 to 1,600 meters
Hmm.
and just have a good place rate because that would just be a great story.
Yeah, it would be awesome. I do. I think it's unlikely. Like for instance, I mean, Ducky Melon's a great example, right? So it looks like like 1,800 meters, or there is no 1,800 meter race, but it does you at pretty much. It's not a great tournament horse because it seems to you at a lot of distances, right?
Yeah.
So its chance of coming last in a lot of these races is pretty high.
Yes, that's true.
I like your comment about the mid distance possibly having the biggest kind of edge or chance to perform in this. And I think it's interesting that they chose like the bottom, like the smallest distance of each funnel, and then the top distance of each funnel. And in a way, I almost feel like that favors middle because to me, these
Mm,
are two potentially
yes.
stronger middle positions. There's to me, I guess there's a anecdotally a better chance of overlap if you are mid distance that
Yeah.
you'd be better at 1,400 than you would at 2,000.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And if you're kind of a distance, you're either, I feel again anecdotally, you're either on the top end of that where it's like 22, 24, 26, or
Yeah.
like the bottom, not necessarily one or the other. So in a way, I almost kind of feel like it favors that middle distance even more.
Yeah, possibly, as you touched on there, possibly a really long distance horse could sneak in, right? Because you
Yeah.
do see that they often, you'll see like with that flame distribution usually for like a real long distance horse, like an LBJ goat, let's say, right? It's clearly like wants it as long as possible, but then 2,200, but it will also win at 2,000. So at least it has those three distances. But that horse is going to lose at the 1,000 meter race. Like it's going to come last, I guarantee you. So tough, right?
I feel like this really hurts sprinters a lot.
Yeah, well, sprinters. So one thing I found in that Dons tournament with Trash Donkey, the problem is with sprinters is the distance preference isn't as high at 1,000 meters as it is at 2,600 meters by all indications, right? So they're simply just not going to be as consistent if you need a huge number of races. This is only 6 races, so once you get to the finals, maybe not that much of a problem. But
Yeah.
for something like the Dons tournament where it was 15 races, I mean, I didn't go back and check, but I'd be really surprised if any of the top 10 horses weren't long distance horses.
Yeah. I would believe that.
Here, I'm gonna take this the other stream really fast though, because I
Go
did
for it.
find what I was talking about with the time limit for that tournament. Give me 1 second. Come back in.
Thanks for
Hide
the raid,
this.
Naruto.
And yeah, shout out to Naruto for the raid. Screen. Understand. Let's proceed. Select. Um, screen two.
I completely agree with you, though, MJ, that it's either going to be like the mid distance or long distance.
And so, if you get the qualifying period, October 30th starts at 12 a.m. British time or UTC, ends October 30th, 12 a.m. October 15th, 12:30. Now here, quarterfinal to the finals.
Wow, that is pretty nuts, actually.
Yeah. That's wild.
And so I don't know if that's because this might be the first one, so they might have updated it on the other one for that you have. So I don't know. Zed's can be a little iffy with how they release all the information at one point in time, but you see 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. for the quarterfinals. The semifinals start 6 p.m. same day, end at 9 p.m. Finals start at 8
That's wild.
Like, there's no way you're getting in
to
20
8:30.
races.
Look at this,
In
8
that
p.m. to
You're
8:30.
not
Yeah,
getting in
that's
20 races. No way.
there's got to be a typo. This is the second time though in one stream, MJ, that Golden School does both. I just want to
Yeah.
point that out.
Yeah, that's two. Let's give the points. We need a little point
Yeah, I
track.
need a score counter.
No,
But yeah, I mean, you're right. This can't. If this is correct, I mean, I don't see the logistics. What if you've got work? How does this function?
and so we
Yeah, right.
we thought, here, let me hide mine and go back to MJ's. And so what we thought was that maybe they're going to auto run your horses. Um,
Oh wow.
like that takes control over your horses for this specific day and runs the tournament. Because they do like the only part of the NFT that we actually own is the picture of the horse.
Hmm.
The data of the horse that's on Zed.Run's site, that's owned by digital humans. And so they can theoretically run the entire race.
Maybe if it was in free races. So, what are your guys' thoughts though on the fact that they sucked away the free race budget in order to put this tournament on?
I think it's I think it kind of sucks short term, but I think long term it'll be good. Because there's some horses that are kind of in that gray area of like they need that free race because that's like the only place that they can race. It's just the nature of the horse.
Yes.
But I think that and I don't think they will do well in this tournament, so it's an immediate hurt. But Zed has said that they're going to do other races at, they could be daily, weekly, different combinations, different qualifying metrics. And so, in a way, that could be very beneficial to them. And they might lose out on some short term money, but the potential to have longer term gains that are much significantly higher, I think, is really there and is huge.
I wonder if it's going to be sort of like a week by week thing. Like if there's a tournament week, all the money's getting put towards that, and otherwise they turn on free races. I do think that it was odd that they just went 100% in the other direction after only just increasing the free money prize pool. Right? I think there's something there that we're not aware of that contributes to this decision. My suspicion is that maybe the free races weren't having the effect that they thought it would, right? Maybe the idea was that, this was going to help distribute money to a lot of the smaller stables, but instead it's the stables that just have, a huge amount of horses that are winning all the money, something like that. I don't know, but it does seem to be something must have gone on, right? They only just turned on the free races. If they knew that this tournament was going to happen as well, it seems odd at the very least.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was just released. How long ago did they release the information
Yeah,
for
yeah, not that long ago.
free racing?
Where's who is the guy in the chat where's Supreme Display of Talent? I bet he's furious. I hope he's
Yeah,
right.
they just destroyed his top 3 weekly finish, right?
Be interested to see if he falls off.
People feel like there's bots are the reason that they turned it off, because they tried to do it, and then anytime there's money involved with stuff, people are going to come out to try to get an edge. And so, yeah, I do think there might have been bots, or there might have been people using the keyboard thing, programming their keyboard, like I just said. That gives you about like a 2-second delay. Like you're just waiting and you're hitting the keyboard. I know a couple people do it. I'm not going to say who, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it, because you're not botting. You're actually still manually putting yourself into the race, but you're doing it just faster than I could with a mouse and keyboard.
I mean, to that point, they did announce that they were going to crack down on botting, right? But there was never any announcement of like a ban wave or what the penalty would be. So it could be that they're using this tournament to buy themselves a little bit of time until they have what they think are some good procedures in place in case they do catch people. Because you're right, there have to be some people, because of the incentive, there have to be some people that are like nefarious actors. And so at least this gives them some time to really think about what they want to do, and maybe to implement some like anti-botting procedures. That could be one reason.
It's going to be very hard to catch people botting, and to prove it, unless somebody's racing 24/7. And then even then, you could have like in Doofy, one of the people I look up to the most. His wife races for him, and then he probably gets on and races when she's not racing. So you can't prove somebody's botting beyond a reasonable doubt. I could be like, what you want?
Yeah, and it doesn't go along the ethos of sort of like true NFTs if they're like nerfing the horses or something. Like I don't even know what the penalty would be. But I would be really sad if free races don't come back. Do you know what I mean? It was such a cool aspect of the game, and there were definitely different stables doing stuff. So yeah, it would be tricky for me if it was completely removed. At the very least, it would be cool to have like 1 week of tournaments, 1 week of free races, something along those lines.
Well, to another point, we did come up with a system. It started with Keith from Crimson Racing, and then Centribos kind of refined the idea when Keith was like, well, we need to be able to race our horses to test and learn them. So free racing might just become like practice mode. I'd still like to see free racing, but if we can have a practice mode as well, where I don't got to worry about 80,000 people trying to jump into this practice race, then that wouldn't be bad as well, because then I get to test my horses and whatnot. And that's kind of sort of like what Centribos and Crimson were alluding to, is like everybody's asking for maidens or something to run where like you're not necessarily gaining or losing money, and that might just be a solution.
I mean, sure, but I mean, if you have a horse that can only win in free races, you still got screwed, right?
Yeah. Shoot, I have a horse that couldn't win in free races.
I've got zero tolerance for those guys. They get floor sold.
Should we switch to the final topic of the night, our debate?
Let's do it.
We got one more thing to cover with the last update, which was the stamina.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh sure, yeah. I mean, well, look, for me, stamina is like a godsend, right? I mean, it's so refreshing to be able to race again. That's my general thoughts.
I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to think about it anymore. I can just race.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there has been a little bit of drama associated with the update with the stamina, which is people think the racing algorithm changed. Since you guys look at the data way more than I do, I race and I ask you guys about the data. What would you say has been the outcome? Can you see any changes? I know BG posted a little something on Twitter yesterday. I was really drunk, so I don't remember all the details. So,
I mean, at least from what I understand about it, it seems to be a cosmetic change, but it does seem to be that the times are different. So, it seems to be that there wasn't as much of a wide distribution in finishing times as we were seeing, but I don't know that was getting reflected into like the horses' placements. That was my understanding of where it was left. Did you dig any deeper into that, MJ?
I haven't done too much. There's appeared to be some differences, but one thing I wanted to pull up that I thought was well done, or at least interesting, and I don't know like if this has been normalized. I don't know what other kind of filters have been put on this, but this is from Haku's Twitter account. Tweeted this earlier, and is looking at like, okay, once stamina or fatigue was implemented, you see this drop in the time in what appears to be in meters per second, and then that slowly starts to come back up to be almost in line, more or less, with what it was pre-stamina. However, the standard deviation, I guess, had dropped, and it's very, very slightly increasing. But I mean, it was what 0.35 ish, judging
Yeah.
just kind of eyeballing this, and right now we're right around 3 still.
And so I think that's what I meant by we're not getting those extremes, right? If the standard
Yeah.
deviation is dropping, I think that means that the times are sort of more condensed. But it does seem to me with something like this, when you look at it, like it's hard to judge the effects of stamina because we would have had a lot of instances of strong horses that weren't fatigued racing in a field of fatigued horses, right? So that would have had a massive effect. And when you look at something like this in average times or whatnot, again, now that things are, I mean, they're not exactly the same as pre-fatigue, but we're just not going to get those instances of entire fields of horses that are getting affected by fatigue. Not
Yeah.
typically. So I would imagine things are going back to normal. I really don't believe that they changed something in their algorithm or anything like that. I feel like we would have got a notification.
And so normal is pre-fatigue normal, not the month of fatigue, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Real fast, thank you, Mandalorian. He confirmed that the horses are auto running once you manually qualify for the tournament. So
Oh,
that time,
interesting.
for your point, what if you got to work, or what if like Zed's going to take over for a full 24 hours of racing? So
Yeah.
once you auto qualify, I think I
Well,
have a strategy.
so-
I may be able to get in. I don't know.
I like it. A few other kind of interesting things I want to point out on this chart is that kind of gradual increase in standard deviation. We were seeing that prior to the big drop off.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that seems to be kind of coming back. And then also, if you look at, and I don't know what the rest of this chart would look like off to the side, but the speeds here were like middle, almost matching, beginning of July, almost matching kind of like the middle of stamina there. And I think that's very interesting that we had a big jump and it kind of leveled off before coming down and then slowly increasing. So I think that's, I guess, something interesting to note and to just kind of consider is that the even without official updates, like the speeds and the performance in general is constantly changing in Zed, constantly.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got to admit, I didn't do that much digging. If you really want to dig deep into the data, I think BG has a number of tweets on that
Yep.
stuff. So if any of our viewers are like super interested in it, I think you can dive in there. But certainly they did I think the XYZ guys were the first ones to bring this to the public's attention. They did a whole stream on it. And then there was sort of a post-mortem and things sort of blew up from there. But yeah.
Yeah. And I guess another thing to consider too is look at the scales on this. 16 points, it's 0.06 from the bottom to the top for speed,
Yeah.
which isn't a lot.
Yeah, that's nothing, right?
And on the other side, we're talking less than half, maybe half of a like 0.05 difference in standard deviation, which on this chart looks huge. And on the chart, the speeds look huge, but is it really that much?
No.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The difference there is pretty insignificant. Although I have seen charts that look more drastic than this. When you see, I wonder if I can find it on Twitter, but when you see the spread in the finish times, it looks quite clear and quite jarring.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see if I can dig it up. Maybe we move on. We should have prepped for this.
Okay.
That's all right. No worries.
Well,
Um, was it the one that BG posted?
No, that one is interesting though. That sort of I think shows that there does seem to be a cosmetic change, and we're not getting the level of those super close finishes anymore. I think that's what it said.
oh,
Yeah.
And I imagine maybe the other side as well, which is the yeah, again those horses just winning by like 3 seconds.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Should we if you find it, pull it back up. But let's go ahead and switch gears over to our final topic of the night, the debate. So,
It,
I believe the question that was posed this week was from you, uh, Zed Insight. What is the topic?
Well, so yeah, look, I wanted to bring this up because I have a video that's coming out today. I actually thought it would already be out for this news update, so that's why I wanted to talk about it. But I've been doing a lot of digging into breeding now over the last few weeks, and I've sort of been talking to all the different camps. I've had ZG and Dr. Ian, I've had Dan Chan on, I've had all of the XYZ guys, I've had BG for his thoughts, and sort of I've really become a big believer in the sort of the XYZ theory of breeding. And it does sound that that's very different to you, Gordon. So I thought it would be an interesting topic because for me, after doing a lot of digging, I really think that there is almost no evidence that there's any kind of like pass down in genetics. There's no kind of skip generation. And yes, I really have gone back to thinking that it is a relatively simple algorithm.
So, do you want to summarize kind of your stance or XYZ's stance, like just
I'll
succinctly for
probably
us?
butcher this, but the general idea, I believe, is this: is that within Z we have sort of three pretty clearly identifiable variables. There is base ability, variance, and distance preference. Right? These are the variables that Z have mentioned within the documentation that there is actually statistical examples or statistical evidence that they exist. Right? And so their view is that when you do sort of large level correlation analysis between every breed that's ever happened, between like parents and offspring, parents and grandchildren, all those things, with all of those individuals and comparing those correlations, the only thing that has a significant correlation is base ability. So that's the only thing that has large statistical evidence that is getting passed down from the parent to the offspring. And the other things seem to be, I mean, I think there is like 0.07% chance or something like that that there's a correlation there with those distance preference and the variance. And those, and bear in mind, like I don't want to get into the exact specifics on what we think those traits have on the racing algorithm, but that is the primary racing trait. So it seems to me to be that their view is really that when you choose your sort of breeding pair, what you're really doing is selecting the level at which you're going to be competing. So that base ability, which is getting passed down, pretty much only determines your mean class, the class that you're going to be competing within, right? And then distance preference and variance are completely random. So they seem to just be minted at breeding. So they're not saying that breeding is completely random because there's still a lot to still a lot of game theory that comes in here into giving yourself the best chance to have a breeder. But what they are saying is that you have to get incredibly lucky on distance preference and variance in order to have a good breeder, and that those have no. It just doesn't matter which parents you're choosing to breed from with regards to that. And yeah, I mean, again, in this video that's coming out, I go into more details as to like why I have an issue with the ZG theory and the Danchan theory. But that's the one I find the evidence is the most compelling for.
Okay. And so, um, this is I'm gonna say something that ZG would say, and he'd
I
agree with
love,
me.
I love it. Yeah.
Nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about. We can look at the data and all we want, but there's a huge RNG factor to
Yep.
breeding.
Yep.
A huge RNG factor to breeding. Because like people say horses can't be more or the odds of breeding a horse that's more powerful or stronger than its parent is very slim. And then I look at something like Gold War, which is something MJ bred, who's stronger than both of his parents.
So, 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 so,
Go
just
ahead.
just to clarify that, because I've heard this mentioned a few times, and this is a misunderstanding of I believe what those guys are saying. No one is saying that you can't breed a stronger racer, right? Because remember, racing is based on the belief is that racing is based on distance preference and variance, right? So you can definitely get a horse that has um, stronger variance and distance preference. You can definitely have a more profitable racer. The argument is that you can't get higher base ability, or right? It could
Gold
be
War
equal,
have
maybe.
Gold War
Base ability really.
Okay, go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
so all I'm saying is like that the base ability really, what they're saying is you can't get better breeding stock from the offspring than you can from the parent. Not that it can't be a better racer.
So what define base ability?
So base ability seems to me to be, it is, that is kind of like a hard thing to explain. It's sort of to me like a horse's natural class. Like if you didn't game with running the distance preference and the variance, if you eliminated those, a horse will sort of seem to like run into a particular class. And have you ever had like a horse that you just can't downclass it out of a particular class?
Yes.
And this is sort of the reason why like Z1s tend to stay in class, class one, and you sort of step on down and all the Buterins are in class five. This base ability really seems to be this core attribute that is determining, yeah, you're generally your level of class. Now, with the fact that we have these like strong distance preference horses and with class, there's obviously a lot of noise in there. You can, as you've seen with Gold War, like, class all the way up into class one very easily if you have strong enough distance preference, right? So you can
Mm-hmm.
sort of push outside of your base ability. I will say that.
So
But yeah, so that's my understanding.
so how does Gold War not have a strong base ability?
Well, I don't know how whether he does or whether he doesn't have a strong base ability because again, you bred from like relatively low Z numbers, right?
Yeah,
And
eight
it, and
and
it does,
four, I
yeah,
think.
and it does
Nine
seem
and
that
four.
like it does seem that base ability is in general tied to the Z number, right? I mean, there's a spread there, but
Sure.
if you were to sort of chart the parent pass mean, which to my understanding is sort of like the best proxy for base ability, you do see this like clear flow down from the Z1s through to the Z10s. Right. So it's not that he doesn't have a high base ability. It's just that he's winning not based on his base ability. He's winning because of his high distance preference or high variance.
Okay.
So give me an example of a horse that has a very high base ability that is a super strong racer.
So that's like the dream. I would imagine that's like a breathless edge, something that essentially just doesn't lose, right? Because it's just never going to finish in that sort of second half of
Sure.
the distribution curve, right? So I think the best sort of it's hard to see in place because again, there's so much noise with these other variables. But I think the clearest indicator of a horse that has very high base ability is something that has like a very big like left skewed, either that just like it wins only and doesn't really lose, so it's not a U shaper,
Yeah.
or like you could also have a horse that has. Have you seen Yacht Club member? Maybe you can pull it up. I think this
Yeah, I
is a
can pull
great
it up.
example of a horse that has clearly has like incredibly high base ability because it never loses pretty much,
Mm.
but it doesn't really have the distance preference or the variance in order to get those wins, right? So we see all these wins on like the left side of that distribution curve, right? But we don't
Mm-hmm.
we see like everything is from like 1 to 5. However, it just doesn't have the variance and the distance preference to get those first. So the chances are when it's going in a race, something has higher distance preference or something has higher variance. So it's going to eventually knock at those W's, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
also you couldn't class down with this thing, for example, right?
Right.
It would almost be impossible. So I think this is the kind of thing that you want to see. And again, I don't think that anyone has I don't know that everyone has like a perfect way to measure base ability just yet, but I think there's enough there, especially when you look at, um, yeah, when you look also at those pairings as to where you're getting the highest frequency of winners. As soon as you get a base ability below class five, you see this massive drop off in how successful horses are. So we go from seeing like the success rate of breeds go from 5 to 8%. And then as soon as you're breeding with like, let's say, two Z15s together, right? Below that, the base ability is so slow, is so low, sorry, that the success rate drops to 2%.
See, I've been slowly working on another theory, and it's the breeding with Genesis theory, right?
Okay.
Not necessarily like I don't care I don't care if you're breeding crosses or elite or exclusives. Well, legendaries have to be Genesis. It's almost like the prevailing theory is. that you have to breed with Genesis horses. And so there's also combinations. This is something I asked every single person who knows anything about breeding. I'm going to take over the screen real quick,
Go
MJ.
for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Hide on stream. And I hate to, like, I'm gonna put something out here. My first breeding theory works. And my first breeding theory is based around these two male horses. One horse is called Black Fiddler, the other horse is called Our Promise. Now, what happens is, Our Promise has produced three, oh, shoot.
I feel like that's the Always Sunny meme.
Three children. Three children. Our Promise has produced three legendary Finnies, children. And each one of his children that breed with Black Fiddler turn out to be stronger horses than both Black Fiddler and Our Promise. And they're profitable. Holly of Great Burn Stables just did it because she owns a horse that has done it before. And she bred it twice. This has happened now 4 times. Direct offsprings of Our Promise females bred into a Genesis horse, a Black Fiddler. We do know and understand that Genesis horse bred into legendaries make stronger exclusives. But the fact that this has happened every single time it's happened between a direct offspring to a to the horse, it's produced a strong ROI horse and a strong horse in general. There's something there, and Dan Chan couldn't see it because I asked him. He just said, "Oh, I think it's Black Fiddlers because he had his blood tool, and his blood tool is highly effective. Everybody I know owns it said it's freaking
So,
great."
so it's funny because I would consider this like the Dan Shan theory, right? Like when I go into this in my video that I'll be releasing today, but like the theory there that Dan Shan has really is that there's that breeding trait that certain horses are just good breeders, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would have imagined that this would sort of fall in line directly with his theory. I think my issue with these kind of horses, because I also point this out,
Mm-hmm.
Gold War it's like Golden Globe. It's that whilst there are a number of horses that seem to produce, like 5 out of 8 good offspring or whatever, there's very few that once you get to, the 20 or 30 breed level that have maintained that success rate. So things tend to revert back to the mean. So the problem here is like, how you can have the problem here is you can't disprove it. It's just that I think we will be able to in a year or so. Although they'll probably have changed the breeding algorithm by then, so it kind of goes.
The specific context, though, for this is, all right, this specific horse, let's see if I can find this one's parents as well. And this specific horse, it's only 2, I've only found this in one case, and that's because the guy liquidated his stable and he owned both horses. And so it's just this specific horse with, 2, hold on, I'm missing one. Which mother am I missing? This one. With bred into 3 separate fillies. One's a Buterin, 2 are Finnies. Right? And it produced these 3 mares. These 3 mares have produced these 4 horses. Right? And as you see, they're all positive ROI. One sitting in class 4 because it just started. This one's sitting in class 3, and I believe this one's sitting in class 2. And this one hasn't been raced in forever, but it's sitting in class 4. And the only common thing you can see here is these 2 horses.
But they must have bred other horses as well, right? It's not like they just pitched 100%.
They have bred other horses. I used to own this horse, Our Lady Carol. All the rest of her offsprings are donkeys.
So my only thing here is like, again, it could just be that same thing, right? It could just be that randomness coming in. I mean, there are 4 mares. What you're saying is that there's 4 mares, and each of them have bred 1 good offspring. I mean, it depends how many horses they've bred, but if we're saying that you on average get, an 8% win rate, an 8% profitable horse rate, then you'd have to look at the other horses here. But if it falls perfectly in line with that success rate, then
this
that would be what we would expect, right?
Holly's horse, Gray Avenue, for her horse has bred with the horse twice. 100% success rate.
But I mean, it's true. Look, I've got to admit the issue with these things is there are these individual examples of horses that look successful. But the problem to me is when you zoom all the way out and we just look at every breed that's ever happened, right?
Hmm.
There doesn't seem to be enough cases for it to be statistically significant. Obviously, there will be outliers.
Yeah, I understand. That's why I wanted to test it more. I had Holly test it, and she tested it because she bred, but she owned this horse after it bred this horse right here. Old Chick, it's my mother-in-law. I hate that name, but she owned a horse after it bred this horse, and so she went back to it and tried it, and it's been lightly raced, but you know, the proof so far is in the pudding. It's got fire.
Well, that is true. Like, if you're having a look at that, we don't really know, right? It does seem that that horse can't be too good because she didn't continue to race it.
Well, she just bred it like a week ago.
Okay.
She just
Maybe
bred
she's trying to
it.
maintain that win rate. We'll have to check it out, dig into it.
But yeah, it's just been bred. It's for what's 9-10. It's just starting where she hadn't discovered its prime where it's running good at or whatnot. Because it's got a win at 1,000, a win at 2,200, and another 2 wins at 1,000. So still trying to figure out what the distance preferences on it overall. But you know, in the first 7 races to get 3 wins is pretty good.
So look, MJ, we've heard from me, we've heard from Golden. What do you think? What's your take then on my conclusion that I've come to? Oh, I can't hear you, MJ.
Oops.
I like the idea of baseability.
Mm.
I like the thought behind it, but it's so theoretical right now because you can't quantify it. I just put up flying fiddler in here, or I feel like you can't quantify it well.
Could just be
And
my
if
bad job of explaining it, but yeah.
not you, I'm just saying like in general. Like I
Mm.
felt like it's theoretical but visual at this point. And I don't know if that's intentional. Like maybe people don't want the sauce to get out, which that's fine. I understand that. I think there's
I
something there,
definitely don't
but
think that's the case. Yeah.
um, but I guess I
Too
want to see more
theoretical.
evidence
Mm.
for it. Yeah, I'm not against it, but I want to see it quantified.
Hmm.
Right. I mean, the ones to me that the I think the charts to me that do the best job of driving it home are when you see the correlation of like class mean of the parents and that of the offspring. It's almost like night and day. And then also when you look at the Z numbers, I wish I'd prepared these charts. But also when you look at the Z number and the average class mean. So when you get those box and whisker charts, you do see a span, but you also see this almost like completely um, would linear be the word? A completely like, uh, linear line. Just everything sort of falls in unison.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you are right though. I think that because there's so much noise in the game, it's hard to isolate any of these attributes that we believe that exist.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's just that was just one pattern I found. I could be wrong. You know, I just see the pattern just because if it's every single time that it's happened, it wasn't a bad horse. And so that, like, if it only happened twice, then hey, but all 4 times, that's 100% hit rate, and we haven't had a horse breed in different combinations for 100% hit rate, except for that specific combination.
Look, if it maintains it, I mean, that would be great. But again, the thing is usually when that's happened, the horse is a pretty low sample size.
Mhm.
Those horses tend to exist when they have 3 or 4 breeds, but I don't think there's any horse that's done that over 20 breeds. So my issue is, again, it's kind of like a horse in a race. You can go on a bit of a win streak, but over 100 races, things are going to revert back to the mean. And again, it's hard to rule it out right now because every horse in the game doesn't have 20 or 30 breeds.
Yes.
So we can't disprove it the other way. But I
Mhm.
would say that the evidence isn't looking great when you do look at the larger picture. I mean, you might. My issue, I guess, is that in general, when you look at horses that have inbred, like if we just look at them all, um, or that have this, I guess this wouldn't be inbred though, because you're Golden Globe, right? Because this isn't, they're not like doubling up on the parents, are they? You're just saying that they're sort of like a parent combination that's working. So yeah, this is more in line with what Dan Chan's talking about. And yeah, I do sort of have like mentally in my mind, I do sort of give like a 10-15% chance that something like the Dan Chan theory does exist.
So maybe, and call me out if I'm oversimplifying this,
Mhm.
but aren't all theories technically the three predominant theories, ZG, Danshan, XYZ, Aren't they
Hmm.
all basically saying the same thing in a different way?
I
So
really don't think I know.
here, hear me out on this.
Yep.
So Dan Chen is saying there's a breeding ability.
Yep.
There's a breeding score.
Yep.
I guess maybe he doesn't say it's base ability, but they're both the theories are tied in the fact that there is something, a core value that is passed down. Correct? And then couldn't that then theoretically that core value be maintained on some level through inbreeding?
So it seems like inbreeding almost has like a negative effect, right? I mean, inbreeding, you're saying that there's a legitimate chance that something like skips a generation, right? And we're saying that there's this genetic algorithm, so we're saying there's like phenotypes, crossover, there's like these complex things that are going on within the algorithm for it to be a GA.
Sure.
And there's really no evidence of that. Sure, you could say that like if you started with something that has the best base ability,
Yeah.
and that you just read from that, like, yes, you have the highest chance of maintaining baseability within that offspring. So if you really squint, you can kind of see that, but I don't think that's what they're saying. What they're saying is that by inbreeding, you're increasing your chance to have a better breeder, right? And that you can have like better breeding genes from offspring. And so those
Okay.
two theories are like completely opposed to each other.
Fair.
And then Jan Shan and the XYZ, it's true. I sort of think of these on a spectrum. On one side, you have the ZG. On the other side, you have the XYZ, and you sort of have Dan Shan in the middle.
Mhm.
And what he's saying is true. You could kind of squint and say, like, yeah, maybe like breeding gene is just what the XYZ guys are calling base ability, right? But from what I understand, like he seems to, at least the way that he adjudicates it or that he evaluates a breeding score is primarily by looking at the Griffin odds, what he calls like the G score, right?
That's
And so he's evaluating the breeding ability of the horse based by like not looking at all at like class men. So he's really judging it on something that's completely different. Do you
Couldn't
know what
that
I
be the
mean?
ultimate base ability because it's first race? There's no class influence. There's no fee influence. In a way,
My
doesn't that
my
remove some noise outside of the crazy variance in competition?
I think it's the opposite. I think there's the most noise because there's just the fields of griffins are so completely random. Like you can have
Fair.
some griffins that are so competitive, right? And in which case, if you pulled great griffin odds in that race, like yeah, it could be great. And then and on the inverse, you can have and this is probably more typical, like a race that is completely horrible. And Danchan does try to wait for this, right? So he does try to um, look at the average Z number of it, look at how good the best horse from that race ended up being. So he does like weight the Griffin scores to try and remove some of that noise. But I mean, the big thing to me is sort of what I was saying when we were sort of going on with Golden Globe. There is that whilst we do have good examples of parents that seem to produce consistently good offspring, that over time those horses seem to go away. Do you know? Like the more
Shit.
breeds we
Right.
get, the more they are tending to revert towards the mean.
Yeah.
So, and so I think the more that happens, the more we can disprove Dan Chan's theory.
See,
Interesting.
here's where Dan Chan's theory is actually it's based off of offsprings that were already produced. So
Yep.
he needs your horse to have a decent sample size of offsprings, and then he scores its breeding ability based off of the total amount of offsprings that it has shot out. And then
Right.
he'll like, so if you have a donkey that's only bred donkeys, then the breeding score that his algorithm is going to give that horse to having a shot to breed anything is going to be significantly down. So it's almost mirroring the XYZ guys, except he's using actual data that's already occurred to give the horse a breeding score. So like if your horse the more breeds your horse has, the more opportunity he has to look at his data. And so if like you've had a mare that's bred 5 times and it's bred four out of 5 times and four of them were winners with another Genesis horse where it's got like a Genesis stallion, say something like I forgot that Genesis stallion that bred like 20 times on day one of breeding open. It produced one great offspring and the rest of them were. Let's say you have one like Wall Street, who's produced a lot of good quality racers. Say you
Yeah.
compare it with something like Blazing Foxfire, who's one of the best Genesis breeders. She's only produced two bad offsprings out of 6 tries, I think. Say, wham! His breeding algorithm would give that a breeding score to give you a more than likely to have a good horse. That's my understanding on how it goes. Is it's just looking at all of the data and all of the bred horses, and then seeing what the parents produce, and then bam, it'll give you a
Yeah.
score.
I mean, yeah, I've jumped on chat with Dan Chen for more than an hour. I guess the question to me then is, yes, that occurs, right? But what is the best explanation for why that is occurring? You know,
Well,
so and so I just don't think that there is more evidence on the side of it being a breeding gene that is affecting that, because those you'd have to look at those combinations in comparison to other horses of the same base ability, we can refer to, right, or at the very least of the same Z numbers, right, and see how far outside of what we would expect are those offspring, and over a larger sample size. And that is the big issue, is like what you're saying is right. Like even 5 breeds is like, it's kind of nothing, right?
yeah.
We can, if you had 5 races on a horse, you can go on a 5 race hot streak or losing streak, so it's just, there's really not that sample size just yet. So we definitely can't rule Dan Chen out. I will say that. But I do think that there's more evidence towards some of the other theories.
Yeah, I think I do think there's more evidence toward his breeding ability theory, just because, like, if you look at horses, if you actually look at horses who like when I say all the time, Wall Street. I've been saying Wall Street for the entire time that I've been looking into Zed. I've been saying Wall Street's the best breeder in the game, just because he's got like two bad offspring,
I agree with
and
that.
then
Someone has to be the outlier, right? Even if
yeah,
this thing is random, like there has to be one horse has to be the outlier, you know.
granted. And then so you have two bad offspring, but then their offsprings aren't that bad. So it's because if you look down at this tree, you're like, what the hell? Because you
Well,
look at Blade, which was to me his best offspring, bred with Ace of Spades. Um, if you look at Blade's the grandfather to main event.
I'm really looking forward now to putting out this video today. I'm
I can't
hoping
wait to
it's
see it.
as controversial as this conversation.
I can't wait to see it. But it's like, because breeding's what I've been studying, like this Zed.Run tools. I feel like I told Pony Plug about Zed.Run tools, and then everybody went to it for a little while. Then Haku came out, and nobody's looking at this tool like they should be, because it gives you a visual look at it. I think the horse you're looking for is Armageddon, uh, MJ. It's either Armageddon or
Oh,
Dark Knight. Or Dark Knight.
um,
She's got a lot of kids. I don't even know if he breeds well because I haven't looked at him in a while.
I don't see. Oh, there's Dark Knight.
And then you pull up Dark Knight, and then you go down, and his kids, like Dark Knight's not good, but if you go to his kid, it's main event, and it's whoa. I used to love that horse. Well, hate it more than loved it, because it probably took about $60 from me. Uh, Not that that's a lot of money, but it occurred over like 30 races, and so it's a pretty good horse. But if you go into its genetics, this is going into the skip generation, because if you see Dark Knight's no longer a um, a Nakamoto, he turned into a Finney, and then from there, that somewhere along the line, I don't know where the genetics came from, but Dark Knight's not awesome. It might have just been the luck, because Dark Knight. I had another horse that was by Dark Knight named Hot Spur. That was my first horse. Terrible fucking horse. Still haven't gotten a victory. Like, if you want a donkey for a donkey tournament, go ahead and put an offer in on that horse. That's serious. And so, like, if you look on the left, Apocalypto also had. I used to say Main Event's the best bred horse in the game, because if you look at Apocalypto's parents, it's Reborn Racer and another really, really good Crack. It's
Correct.
Crack. And if you look at that, those two horses, they're early in the game. Those are very dominant horses as well. Um, just down, its bloodline is outside of its parents, its grandparents, and its great grandparents are very good horses.
So again, like maybe we're just sort of reiterating the same points here. So whilst I would agree that main event is a tremendous racer, right?
Hmm.
We're, I, I also think you'll find that it lives most of its time in class 4 and class 5, right?
We have,
So once again, we're sort of saying like that the base ability there, it's not how many of these bred horses that are Z22s are dominating class 1, you know?
we had odds at one point in time though, right?
Yep.
And it was drawing single digit odds in class one.
But odds are well, that's true because it can have like high variance and high and high base ability, right? Oh, sorry, not high base ability, high distance preference.
Yeah, that's true, but it still was drawing. If he would have chose to race it in a manner to take it all the way to class one,
No,
um,
but what I'm saying there is that odds
oh
are
yeah,
pretty much determined by those two racing genes,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so like, and we're saying those are emitted randomly. So yeah, I'm agreeing he's a very solid racer, even at the best. But I'm also saying that I think you'll find that again, if we look at like where it typically lives, sort of what its natural class would be, it'll
Mhm.
be down there in class 4 and 5.
I think its natural class, if it's raced correctly, is probably class three or two.
It is true. I need to find like a more succinct way to explain
I
base
understand.
ability.
I understand what you're saying, but you have to take into account what arbitrage does with LBJ Goat. LBJ
Yep.
Goat naturally, if you're only running it at its distance, is a class two horse.
So there is like one way you could look at this. So it's weird. So at 1600 meters, there is no distance preference, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-mm,
So so one way that the issue here is that you can't. Most horses don't race much there, right? So one way to look at LBJ Goat's base ability, right, could just be like, look, what are its odds, or what that would probably be the best way. What are its odds at 1600 meters?
mm-hmm.
Right. And so, and that would be the best way to sort of get a clean view because we can take distance preference out of the equation. And what we do know about LBJ Goat, it's an incredibly strong distance preference horse, right? Like as long as you can get 2600 meters, it's just going to dominate everything. It's probably one of the highest distance preference horses in the game. In fact, I think it's even a spiker, right? So I don't think it really has much variance.
Well, we were told a long time ago. This is something that like the XYZ guys, not to shoot any shots at them or anything, but we were told specifically that every horse on the Zed.Run platform has two distance preferences. And I
Well,
think I think if you look at like MJ Analytics or the speed data, it almost verifies that there are two distance preferences on almost every horse. It's where they draw flames at. Not necessarily like you can run at a different distance from your distance preference, but distance preference is the only thing that is in the game. So every
and
horse
variance.
in the game has a distance preference, and we were told it was two. It was on a Doofy stream a while ago. I forgot who he was talking to. It was either Rob, no, excuse me, it was either Ebbs or Jay from Zed.Run, and he specifically said every horse in the game had two distance preferences or two.
I, I want to nitpick one thing because I
But
think it could be a little confusing. That distance preference is different than preferred distance.
okay,
Distance
well,
preference to me at least is like the classification. Is it a sprinter, mid, or long? And I
Mm.
think you're talking about a preferred distance being 1200, 1000,
yes,
etc.
yes, we're told preferred distance, and now I think if you look at how the tournament set up, if you look at how they just set up the tournament, right, with the three distances, sprint, and it's saying sprinter, mid runner, mid distance runner, and marathoner. It kind of almost like showed them
Yeah,
proof.
I mean, I would agree. I do think that again, it does seem that there are all horses will have two preferred distances, but I think that would fall perfectly in line with this theory.
Yes. So no, I'm just saying. So, like we're saying, extreme distance preference when it should might be extreme ability at that particular distance.
But what you'll find is that it's only ever on one side of the spectrum, right? Like there's no horse in the game that has a distance preference at 2,600 meters and then also at 1,400 meters. It just doesn't exist. So it's always you're going to find that they're right next to each other, right? So if
No.
you're so it seems to be on a spectrum, right? Like if you have
Yeah.
high distance preference to the high side, if you're a long distance horse, you're then going to be your next best distance is probably going to be 2,400 meters, right? If you're a sprinter, 1,000 meters, 1,200 meters. So yeah, so like it can be misleading to say like there's two like that. And just quickly on LBJ Goat because I pulled it up
Okay.
again. Like I think it's interesting. Look, it hasn't raced much, but it does have 4 races at 1,600 meters, so we can completely eliminate the sort of distance preference from that score, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it pulled 35 odds, so it's one of those classic spikers. So what we would say here is this horse, if you were to buy this theory, granted, is an incredibly low base ability horse, right? So it's able to go, and that's probably why it tanks so well as well. So it's basically up in class based purely on its racing ability, but it's I think likely to be a pretty bad breeder. Sorry, arbitrage.
We won't know until
Well, it's a Z. I guess it's a Z3 exclusive, but yeah, who knows?
we won't know until we start breeding them.
Yeah.
And somebody
So
arbitrage.
and
It's not
what?
profitable for arbitrage to put them in the breed barn.
So maybe we can like wrap on this. I don't know how much time you guys have got, but so I'm actually doing a giveaway of a Charlie Cheval offspring.
Okay.
So
I've got right here. Boom.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's on my Twitter account. If you just share that out and follow the instructions. So I managed to snipe Charlie Cheval not that long ago, one of my proudest moments. But I felt pretty bad because I chat with Centrovos quite regularly, and so I think it's a pretty good giveaway.
Yeah, you can type. If you don't know is a thing. What's it? Exclamation point inside to bring up his all of his information.
Oh, cool.
Twitter, his YouTube. Forgot about that. I forgot to say that the other day and at the beginning, but exclamation point insight will definitely bring up his information, and it's sitting there in the chat right now as well. So make sure you follow him on, and if you're not subscribed to his YouTube channel, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you. Not the asshole.
Hey, and to your point, Gordon, like if you do buy into that kind of stuff, the mare that I bred Charlie Cheval with is something that's only, I think it's bred 4 or 5 very, very good horses. So if you are sort of into that sort of Dan Shan breeding ability type mindset, then I mean this thing could be an absolute monster.
Yes.
So
Go ahead. Sorry.
I want to circle back. Well, continue talking about this. I have more questions. Maybe we can
Okay.
go later.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, we can
Well,
go.
about
We can
breeding. So
Yeah.
when looking at distance preference and identifying that, after how many races do you make that cutoff? Is it after 3 races? Is it after 10? Is it after 20? And I guess on some level it depends on the horse, but
I mean, to be honest, nowadays with Flames, it's pretty obvious, right? Like, Flames is so good because it gave us that exact distance preference. Like odds could be super misleading because if you look at a horse, especially a mid-distance horse, like my best one, Saga Bolton, right? He's going to pull incredible odds on distances that he has no chance of winning, and we see that in when you look at the actual win distributions. Marajo is a good example as well. Like Marajo pulls good odds in distances that it almost always loses in when you actually look at the distributions. So it just wasn't a great indicator of actual distance preference. You could pull great odds in distances where you were gonna lose.
Well, that goes more or less to
But Flames, you never pull Flames in something that is like your worst distance. You know what I mean? And
True.
you'll see that distribution. Like on a long distance horse, the Flames are always going to be on the long distances. On a sprinter, the Flames are always going to be on the sprinter. And a mid distance horse, it's always in the middle. So Flames are like the biggest indicator as to where the distance preference is.
I think it's NJ Informatics is the biggest indicator of your distance.
so thank you, Golden Goal.
I'm dead serious.
So if you have a very strong racer, yes, that's the case. And the reason why you could have, in my opinion, really good odds and still finish 12th is that you're just on the wrong side of that variance. Because when you had odds, it was a very clear you of
I would agree.
that. So, but like, so I have a horse, Blue Wings.
Okay. Yep.
It has across paid races. It has 11 races at 2,000.
Let's bring it up.
Um, and at that, so we'll do the
That
drill
is
down.
interesting, right? Because its flames are sort of all over the shop. You know,
Right.
okay, so, but what I would say with this, because this is quite similar to a horse of mine, maybe you can bring it up in a new tab,
Yeah.
Magic Plank.
Okay.
And it's true, like horses like this are the most frustrating.
Mhm.
And it's Magic Plank, yeah. And so Magic Plank, again, it's on that super horse list of ours. It's an incredibly strong racer. I think it's made more than one Ethereum in profit. It's 15% win rate, 60% ROI. Oh, look at that! He's only just above 60%. He's going to get relegated. But I think you only find these confusing horses with two instances. One, like Flames seem to be like accurate of a place to like a 60% ratio. So they've obviously built in a bit of noise in there. So you look at this horse, it almost never flames, right? It
Yeah.
obviously wins a lot though. It's clearly a good horse. So it just got unlucky. Like this is like a shitty horse to judge based on flames. However, it's clearly a mid-distance horse, and mid-distance horses are super frustrating because, and maybe has a little bit of distance preference built in, like it seems to be right towards the high side. Like if you look at like 1,800 meters and 2,000
Yep.
meters, right? So sort of you, and then
Yes.
actually, I
16,
mean, he
18,
seems to,
2.
yeah, right. But it's a mid-distance horse, so pretty much it. What I would say is this horse has a slight distance preference, right, to the high side. But what it does have is very high variance and a decent base ability, right? So it's mainly going to live on that variance, and that's why you see most distances it's got sort of got that U shape,
Got
And
it.
so that's why we'll still get flames because flames are an indicator of place, right? You'll still get flames randomly at quite a lot of different distances. If it enters a race, because it has such high variance, it still has a high chance to place in a lot of fields. So you're going to get flames at a lot of different distances. So it can be very confusing. So if you go back to your horse, MJ, I think you'll find something similar. It's very likely to me that this is not a high distance preference horse. Might have some level of distance preference, but it's probably a mid distance horse. So and that the flames are going to sort of be sporadic and confusing.
So yeah, flames are definitely sporadic and confusing. I'm at what 66% at 1,000, I believe. Um,
So,
and
yeah, go back to the flames for us real quick. Hmm.
and so yeah, so it's here, here, and here, but at 2,000, approximately 9% winner, 45% first through third. 1,800, where it's one of the higher, at least with some races behind it.
Right.
Um, that's a 43% flame rate, 14% first through third, no wins, 85% four through eight. But the 1,000, like one, it's hands down the fastest. I know it's only 3 races, but hands down the fastest and best performing so far. And so I guess I don't see too often a horse that can compete. It's very
Yeah.
few races, very few races. It needs a lot more,
Yeah.
but it's competing at 1,000, and it's by my definition competing at 2,000 as well.
I mean, so yeah, I would be blown away if this wasn't a mid-distance horse. Could be wrong, but like I think what you're likely seeing here is it's mainly like it does have slight distance preference towards the shorter distances, right? So and actually, like it doesn't seem like you've raced it much at 1,400 meters. I'd be surprised if that wasn't its best
Mm-mm.
distance because of that. So I think what's happening here is it's got some level of distance preference to the short side, but it's clearly a very high variance horse, right? So that's giving it flames in those shorter distances, and it's giving it the chance to win at 1,000 meters. But I think as you like increase the level of competition, maybe in terms of dollar amounts and stuff like that,
Sure.
you'll probably find that it just can't compete with the horses that have the double whammy of both high the same level of variance, let's say, but also have a really strong level of distance preference. That would be my gut call,
So
anyway.
how am I having success at 2,000 then? It's mostly
Um,
thirds, but it's profitable. 45% first
Oh,
through
I
third.
see. Well, because again, if it's a mid-distance horse, you'll probably see that distribution on both sides of the spectrum. Like if this horse is primarily successful because of its variance, right, not its distance preference, then you're going to
Yeah.
have success on like a whole bunch of different distances. It's sort of like a Saga Bolton type horse, maybe. Like if you look up my horse Saga Bolton, like again, these mid-distance horses, they're sort of kind of good everywhere.
Can I get you to look up Mandalorian's asking in chat, horse? I think its name is Hawk Smash. Right after you do Saga Bolton, because he has a horse that flames everywhere as well.
Maybe do the U for this. I mean, if you look at it, like he'll U-shape everywhere. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and so there's almost, if there is a distance preference for Saga, he's probably like slightly towards the high side, but he pulls
Mm-hmm.
great odds everywhere. He pulls great flames everywhere, and and I think it's essentially because he doesn't have a strong level of distance preference. He's just super high variance, so it doesn't matter. He's never gonna. He's not usually going to come in the middle. He's just going to win, or he's going to come last, and it doesn't really matter the distance. He's just going to not pull those middle distances very often. So, yeah, I mean these are frustrating horses though, man, because you don't know when you're going to class up, you don't know when you're going to class down. They're a nightmare to tank. Yeah.
You might be right because I used to have this horse named Gallant Tune, and I was racing him at 1,800 and 2,000 meters, and then I was still at like a 13% win rate, like win. I'm not even thinking about seconds and thirds and stuff. And then I was able to figure out that his distance was actually 1,400 meters, and he
Mm.
was winning. And then like I sold him, and then the guy put him in $25 races at every distance, and he was winning and losing. And so I was like, I think it's a mid distance horse, but he can run anywhere. And he stays in class 4. I could up class him or I could down class him. And it just didn't matter. But this is Mando's horse, Hawk Smash. He says flames everywhere.
So if I'm reading this right, this horse has a middle distance preference slightly and has some variance and a good amount of base ability.
Again, middle distance preference is like a funny thing, right? Because I don't think we're saying there is a preference there. What we're saying is it doesn't really have much of a distance preference.
Sure.
Do you know what I
okay.
mean?
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
because we're
that makes
saying
sense.
there is no distance preference at
Sure.
mid distance. So what we're saying here really is it's just a horse that is reliant on its high variance as opposed to it being strong at a particular distance, right? And maybe you have like sometimes have like a slight edge to either the long or the downside. But you're right. Was it you, Golden, who said to bring this up?
Yes.
Like this horse, I think, is another good example of that. Of like, it seems to be like quite clearly like a horse that is reliant entirely on its high variance. And the reason why those horses tend to like maybe not compete on one end of the spectrum, right, on the like really long or really short distances, then is primarily because they're then competing against horses that do have that level of distance preference, right? So there's that extra element added in that those horses are going to be more consistent at.
Sure.
So that's why you're tending. That's why these horses are most effective in those middle distances because they don't have to worry about competing against horses with a distance preference there.
Yeah.
I'm excited to race Blue Wings out more.
So, yeah, I think it looks like a really good horse. Again, I think it looks to be like something where you can race it towards the lower distances, and my gut call would be it's probably strongest at like 1,400 meters. So you've only raced it there once.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
I have one more horse maybe that could be similar, MJ.
Sure.
In due course, one word. And so you see how like he flames primarily at 1,600 meters.
Yes.
Yeah, but then again, sort of similar to your horse, like it also has a lot of success at those shorter distances, right? Well, if you actually look at the places, that is. Like places, I think it has the best results at 1,400. Not entirely sure. Again, like a massively frustrating horse, right? So I'd say like that's probably its best sort of like Ewing distance. Although 1,800 meters looks good there as well. So, but yeah, I think again these horses just sort of like, they just whenever it's a mid distance there, you just got to be resigned to the fact that there's going to be a ton of noise. You're going to have to do like a ton of races before you really get to see what they're made of.
Yes. For downclassing these mid distance horses, you have to go to either like I want to say like 24 or 2,600.
Probably.
Or, what was that?
And then yeah, probably, and then you're going to also win some of them as well, right?
Yes,
It's
and
just,
then at 1,000 or 1,200, you can't really class them into 1,800 or 2,000 or the 14.
Yeah, it's too close to that middle distance, right?
So right now with Blue Wings, and I know this will change. I feel like it has to change, but its down distance is 1,600.
Can you bring it up one more time for me?
Yeah. It's only, I want to say it's like two or three races, so it's nothing. but it is just not uh, you.
I just thought about this. We're going
Are
on 2
you
hours now. I am gonna cut the video in half for YouTube.
are you concerned at all about the middle places on this horse? That would be my only concern so far.
What do you mean
Like it seems
concerned
to
about
be
the middle places?
like it seems to be finishing a lot like
Oh,
in
overall in the middle?
yeah.
No, I'm not. Not at all. Reason being because I think it was skewed. So I bought this horse as like a pre zero to hero before zero to hero was a thing.
Mm,
And if we go, I'll break that down right now. I think it was raced incorrectly to start, both in terms of entry fee and distance. So if we end on, I think it was the second, um, of July. Uh, I mean, you've got like all of those in the middle.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then if we flip that, and I mean, I guess they're still there. That seventh is there, but now we have a lot more towards the left and a lot more left leaning.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks a lot better though. You're right. Like way better. And again, I mean, if I were you, man, I'd definitely run it some more at 1400.
I'll try that. Yeah, I think that could be fun. It's my fun horse. It's my
Well,
project.
um,
But yes, let's we good to wrap. Anything else from anyone?
I think we're
nope.
good. I think we covered a
Make
lot, man.
sure you go in. I'm gonna type in hat. I'm gonna type in So you didn't have it's there. Uh, Insight.
Yeah, through
Thank you very much.
the link to the giveaway back in chat. Definitely hit that up, everyone.
And make sure you go to Zed Insight. And if you're not following him, it's same thing I'm gonna say about MJ Informatics. I will say that um, Zed Insights interviews really changed the course of people's perception on how to run horses, mainly the Murphy's Law. Like if you're in the Poseidon Facebook group, and I know some of you are, when I said like you have to actually watch the Murphy Law and the arbitrage video, if you're going to be in Zed.Run, you actually have to watch those two interviews he's done, just because it's going to be the way things run if you want to make money in the game at least, because they're the most profitable stables. Not so much Murphy's Law so much anymore. I don't know if he's running as much as he used to.
He sold off a lot of his stable actually. It's kind of sad. It's true.
Yeah.
He's become a lost poets addict.
And so, and then Zetalytics, me and MJ already put the link in the chat. You can just type in if you forget it in future references, it's info with an exclamation point in front of it, and exclamation point insight to get to their stuff.
And I've started to use this more and more, MJ. Like I really love the
Thank you.
normalized speed stuff is really cool as well.
Thank you. And then just kind of to plug both of us, your video will be on my resources page not too
Oh,
long
awesome.
after it's uploaded.
Yeah. Look,
So
as soon as we're done with this, it's going to get uploaded. So if you really wanted to get my sort of like more coherent thoughts on breeding and the evaluation of the three different theories, yeah, that'll be up very soon.
Yes. And so, everyone, I would like to thank you all who stayed for the entire 2 hours and 36 views. Thank you. And the ones that were here earlier, thank you for sticking around. Don't forget Pony Plug tomorrow. You got the Souls Vanish is going against, or excuse me, Two Fools and their Moolah are going against Lucky Jack. So that should be a great stream for the stable duels. And the giveaway is coming. And for the zombie racing, you got 22 days, or excuse me, you have 8 days, or wait, to the 24th. I can't count days right now. You have to the 24th to mint your zombie racing token, or else they're going to be burned. And that's it. Do you have any excess news to report besides that?
I think we are good.
Zetalytics update Thursday. It's ready,
And
but
Zetalytics
I'm not streaming
update
until
on
Thursday.
Let's go. And so
I think
Can't wait to
it'll
see.
help
I'm
with
going to
some of
hit
the
you up
things we talked about.
for early access. I want to cheat. I want to skip the queue.
All right, we'll talk after.
All right. And so thank you.